Hey y'all, I hope you are doing well today. In this video, I'm going to show you how I created this easy yet gorgeous Lapis Lazuli beaded pendant. It's comprised of 2 different types of beads and some wire. So stick around and get ready to learn how I created this piece. So for this project, you'll need some materials. And to start with, you'll need this 20 gauge wire, one piece cut at 25 centimeters in length. You'll need 2 types of beads. One's a 6mm round Lapis Lazuli bead, and the other's a 12 by 8mm rectangular Lapis Lazuli bead. And you can use whatever sizes you want for this. You just have to adjust how you do it. You'll also need some chain nose pliers. You'll need some flat head pliers. You'll need some looping pliers. This one ranges from 2 to 9 millimeters in mandrels, but you could also just use some round nose pliers. You'll need a pair of flush cutters. And lastly, you'll need some sort of chain for your piece. In this video, I'm using this 18-inch copper chain. And this concludes the materials you'll need for this project. So if you missed something, you can either re-watch this portion of the video, or you can check out the materials list in the description below this video. Now let's get started on this project. So to start with, we'll need that 20 gauge wire that's cut at 25 centimeters in length, and our 12 by 8mm rectangular Lapis Lazuli bead. And as you can see, this is kind of an organic cut, which I really like. And I'm going to thread this bead onto that wire, and I'm going to thread it about at 1/3 of the way from the end of the wire, leaving 2/3 at one end of the bead and about 1/3 on the other end. So now I'm going to take that left side, the shorter side, and wrap it up and around the top of this bead, like so, bending it down straight and nice and tight against that bead. And then I'm going to grab the longer side, and I'm going to bend that wire straight up and just press it up against the bead. And this is just so we can lock that bead in place while we do this next part. We don't want it slipping around. And then I'm going to grab my chain nose pliers next. And with my chain nose pliers, I'm going to make a bend about halfway across the top of that bead. So I'm going to bend it up at about a 90-degree angle. And I'm just going to make another adjustment here because I don't feel like that's quite centered. So I'm going to grab it again and just kind of bend that back up, and there it's more centered. And because I've got a little bend in the wire there, it'll make it difficult for the bead to slide onto that wire. I'm going to use my flathead pliers to straighten that wire back up. And there you can see how I've centered that wire on the top of that bead. And now I'm going to take that right side of the wire, the longer one, and I'm going to wrap that over the top of the lapis bead, like so. And now I'm going to take this wire and wrap it around the other wire, the shorter wire. So I'm going to pull that nice and tight as I can, without that wire coming forward on the bead. I'm going to pull that around like so. And then I'm going to take my chain nose pliers and I'm going to really tighten that wrap. I want to make sure it's nice and tight and neat. And make sure I get one complete tight wrap around that wire that I'm going to slide another bead onto here in a moment. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a loop around the base of this wire. And I'm creating a spiral at the bottom here. And this is going to be a little platform for the bead to sit on. So now I'm going to grab my Lapis bead, round bead, the 6mm round bead, and I'm going to thread that onto the wire that's coming straight up out of the rectangular bead. And that's just going to sit right in that little spiral. And then with this wire that's sticking out of the top of the bead, I am going to bend that wire toward the back. Again, that's going to lock that bead in place so it doesn't slip around on me while I wrap the wire around that bead. If you don't, you're going to have a hard time keeping that bead down into the spiral or the wraps. It'll just keep popping up on you. So you want to bend that wire back down. And now I'm going to grab the bottom of this piece and I'm going to slowly start wrapping around that bead. So there is my first wrap around the base of that bead. Then I'm going to put a second wrap around the middle of it. And while I'm doing this, I want to make sure that the wraps are evenly spaced across this bead. So there's the second wrap. And see, I'm adjusting, making sure we're nice and evenly spaced. So we're going to do a total of 3 wraps around this bead. So there's the second one. And yes, it does take a little bit of time to do this to ensure that it looks nice. So I take my time. I'm a bit of a perfectionist when it comes to this kind of thing. After all, it's a focal point, so you want to make sure it looks nice. And now we're finishing up that third wrap. And then I'm going to take this longer wire and I'm going to wrap it around the wire coming out of the top of the bead. So I'm going to straighten that wire back up a bit and pull this wire tightly around, as tight as I can, while holding the wraps, the lower wraps in place. And then I'm going to grab my chain nose pliers and really tighten this wrap up around that wire. Like so. And then now this is the point where I'm going to make any adjustments that need to be made to my piece. Any of those wraps that might be out of place, and really make sure they're good and ready before I move on to the next step. And there you can see they're nice and evenly spaced there. And making my last minute adjustments, making sure everything's good and tight, I'm going to start to begin to make the bail for the top of my piece. So first I'm going to start off with these flat nose pliers and straighten up that wire coming out of the top of the bead. And now I'm going to take that top wire and bend it forward toward you to start our bail. I'm also going to grab my looping pliers, and at the 4mm barrel, I'm going to grab the wire between the 4 and 5mm barrels, and then I'm going to wrap the wire around that 4mm barrel. And I'm going to make sure I wrap it nice and snug and tight around there. And then I'm going to make sure that this loop is on top of that round bead, so it's centered on top of the piece. And now with my flat nose pliers, I'm going to grab a hold of that loop I just made, And the tail end of the wire, I'm going to wrap around once and then twice, going down toward the other wrap that was already on there, from the top of the bead. So it'll be a wrap and a half, basically. So I get it pulled back behind, like so, and you can see it looks like there's 3 wraps at the front of this pendant. And then again, as I've done before, I'm going to make sure that those wraps are nice and tight around the base wire there. So I'm just gonna slowly tighten this all up and get it nice and neat and tidy. And there, we're just about there. I've got one little loop here or wrap that's not quite as tight as I want it, so I'm going to tighten it up a little bit more. And there we go, making sure that that veil is straight. And now we've got these 2 wires coming toward the back of the piece. So I'm going to grab my flush cutters and snip off the end of the topmost wire, right so that it will land at the back of my piece. So there's that one. Now I'm going to do the same with the other side. I'm going to flip the piece upside down and snip off the other side and make sure it's flush cut so that the flush ends are on the piece. And there you can see that little tail end there, and then there's the other tail end on the other side, and there's a little space between them. So what I'm going to do here is pull these 2 pieces together behind this pendant. So with my chain nose pliers, I'm going to press the ends of each of those wires down against that base wire so that they'll meet up to each other at the back. And there, I'm going to do one last press on this side. And now those wires are flush up against each other in the back there. And here we have our completed piece. Now's the time to do any last minute adjustments, making sure everything is straight, everything's lined up, and nice and perfect, whatever way you think is perfect. This is a nice piece to do this with because it's kind of organic, so it doesn't matter if it's completely perfect and symmetrical. And now we need to add the last bit, which is the chain. So here I'm going to take the side that does not have the clasp on it, the jump ring side, and put that through the right side of the back of the pendant for right-handed people. If you're left-handed, you want to do that through the left side of your pendant, so that way your clasp is on the left side. And here is the completed project. What do you guys think? The great thing about this project is that you could use any type of beads you like, crystals, stones, whichever. Even the size could be varied. You could do whatever sizes you want. You could do a large round bead with a smaller round bead. You could do all sorts of things. This is where creativity comes in, and you can make your piece your very own. So enjoy. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please don't forget to like this video, and if you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel. It sure does help me out. Thank you all for watching. We'll see you next Thursday.